Growing up mixed race, I always had a little bit of a different understanding of culture and worldview. And although this came with downfalls of its own, thanks to globally conscious and well-traveled parents, I never really felt like I was excluded or unbelonging, like many others feel, but instead I just felt like I was part of the world. And to me, it's always made sense that that's how it should be, that the world is just the world. Our world today is more connected now than ever before. Media, trade, immigration, technology, and other contributors to interculturality have created inseparable ties all across the globe. And although these connections have presented many opportunities, they have also allowed for politics and money and corruption to govern our societies, both locally and internationally. And we have continuously made sacrifices to maintain, benefit, and control these connections. My experiences and knowledge have taught me that the most toxic worldview that we can hold today is that of living in your own little world. Now, this might have worked back in the day of our great-grandparents or our great-great-grandparents, where their responsibility and their connection didn't extend too far off their farm, but we can no longer afford to pretend that the world outside doesn't affect our own. Let's take a look at history. Colonialism, expansionist treaties, repressive policies have all arguably stemmed from the closed-minded view of we're right, they're wrong, while failing to understand the entire situation, the perspectives, and most importantly, the consequences. The world needs more Canada. This is a phrase that I saw written on an apron while I was shopping one day, and it made me think. Although we are privileged to live in a developed and prosperous country, insinuating that implementing aspects of Canada into the world would solve issues is absolutely barbarous. Our economic system, our political system, and our societal structure doesn't work in every society. And we see this failure of this implementation in the history of colonialism and today in the failure of foreign aid. The world doesn't need more Canada. The world needs more compassion, more open minds, and more unity. We cannot continue to be ignorant to how our actions affect the world and how the world affects our actions. And as citizens of this world, we must be invested in the issues that concern humanity and the challenges that are faced by our fellow people. No matter how irrelevant they might seem to us, we are all connected, and more connected than we realize. Politically, economically, and socially, but also culturally and emotionally. As people of this world, we have to see the poverty that surrounds us. We have to understand the discrimination that is so far ingrained in our societies and understand its destruction. We have to open our eyes to see that humans are on a set path to extinction if the environmental action that was needed so long ago doesn't start happening right now. And we have to face the war and corruption that is around the world and see the lives taken as human ones. How will the Uyghur Muslims be freed from Chinese internment camps if no one is aware that they're being actively persecuted? How will systematic racism come to an end if we continue to support the governments and corporations that perpetuate it? How will the drought and potential humanitarian crisis in Somalia have any refuge if no one is aware that it's happening? And how will we halt the bombing of Yemeni children and citizens if we continue to elect governments unaware of the consequences politically and economically in relation to the Saudi weapons industry? And will humanity even continue to survive the next 100 years as we continue to ignore climate change and continue to support the meat and oil industries? Far too often, we forget our citizenship. We are citizens of our own communities and our countries, but we are also citizens of the world. But far too often, we're only citizens of our own convenience. Too many of us don't vote, eat what's cheap and convenient, and shop where it's cheap and convenient. We don't make the effort to understand where the money we spend and donate goes and what our vote implicates. And therefore, what kind of corruption, exploitation, or pollution we're supporting. Our world is beautiful. It is full of natural wonders, beautiful people, cultures, food, languages, and so much more to love, appreciate, and take care of. But our world is also corrupt and crashing. We have environmental crises, unbelievable poverty, government corruption, corporate power, racism, terrorism, sexism, so much more. And we are constantly being manipulated by companies and governments to believe, buy, and vote how they want us to,
because they offer something that we always fall back on: convenience. But take a look around. Our world needs us, now more than ever before. And that means we have a responsibility to work together to take care of our world. We have already spent far too long living in ignorance, and we have let it take an irreversible toll on our societies and our environment. So we must be more informed citizens. Be aware of what is happening and what has happened in the world and what that means for us. Understand your importance as a voting citizen. Our world is more connected than we realize, so it is up to us to research, ask questions, and understand how our country is connected to the world and what kind of influence it has, environmentally, politically, and economically. And as citizens of a developed nation, we have the voice to choose what kind of connection our country has to the world and what influence it has. Understand your role as a consumer. As we know, corporations are some of the most influential and corrupted forces in the world. Understand and make the effort to understand what kind of ethics, corruption, pollution, exploitation that your money is supporting when you buy a product. Consumer society depends on the consumer, so use your voice to cast a vote to how you want to see corporations function. And most simply, break the barriers that separate us as people. Travel if you get the chance. Learn a new language. Talk to people in your community from different cultures and religions, beliefs and passions. And open your mind to understanding the world differently. And most importantly, remember that your responsibility as a global citizen doesn't have to be a full-time job. As long as you continuously make the effort to be conscious of the world around you, the changes to your mindset and your choices will come naturally. Our responsibility is, and always has been, to know, to be conscious of what's happening around us, and to understand people. Understand what makes our world function, what breeds for corruption and poverty and war and the like. And understand how our actions allow for this to happen, and understand how our actions can change it. Look around at the world, at its beauty and at its horror, and recognize that our world needs us. Our world is calling for us. And the best way that we can face the challenges that are upon us today is simply to be curious. So I challenge you to research, to ask questions, and to be an active global citizen. Do your part, because we all have a responsibility. Now, some of you may feel empowered by everything that I've said today, but I'm sure many of you will choose to ignore this responsibility. And to those of you I ask, yes, ignorance may be bliss, but at what cost?